What's up, everybody? This is Shane here again from the Twin Sons podcast, and today we're going to bring you a little bit of content slightly differently. So, if you're here from RuneterraCCG.com, ideally you just came and read the article of me breaking down all of the new Noxus reveals, including Riven and all of her supporting cards and all of the whole Blade of the Exile package there. And if you're here just from YouTube or Twitter or any of our other social medias, instead of breaking down Riven fully and all those cards, what I'm going to do today is just theorycraft about a couple possible Riven decks where she could possibly fit, a few different places I think she might succeed in, a few key cards that I think will help her succeed. And I have a ton of ideas for her, but I'm going to start with 2 or 3 of them and kind of just free flow a little bit about where I think she can go. And I will link the article from RuneterraCCG.com, and you can make sure to check that out for the full rating of the analysis of how those cards are going to impact the meta and where I think they're going to go. But to start this video, let's just dive in and take a peek here at what Riven does. So Riven here is a 3-drop. She is a 3/4, which is super solid stats, like a Badger Bear. When you gain the attack token, Reforge. We know Reforge is a new keyword that essentially gives you these different blade fragments, which we can go over in a second. She levels up when you see Blade of the Exile in your hand. So you don't even have to play Blade of the Exile. You just have to have gotten the Blade of the Exile, which you get through Reforging. When she's leveled, she's a 3-drop obviously still, but she's a 4/5, so the +1/+1 is really good. 4/5 for 3 is super solid. When you gain the attack token, you still Reforge. So again, that could be from either just the turn getting passed to you, or if you find a way to rally during that, you can get it from there as well. But she has a new text, and it's when my power is increased for the first time each round, increase it by twice as much. So anytime you buff her with anything, she will double that buff for just the first buff on her. So any buff spell will be a double effective on Riven level 2, which is super solid. So to jump over at some of the blade fragments real quick, so essentially all these different cards have Reforge, and then you get these different blade fragments, and I'm not going to go through all this because in the article I talk about every single one of these, but essentially, these blade fragments have 3 different options here, and they all have the same speed of gems, so that weird burst speed that can't be played in response to a spell or in combat. But the 3 blades are essentially +2/+0, quick attack, or overwhelm. Once you've cast all 3, and Reforge, as you can see in the top right here, will give you different blade fragments until you get all 3 of them, so you won't get repeats. Once you cast all 3, you'll get Blade of the Exile in hand, which is a 3-cost slow spell, and it gives you all of those 3 buffs we just mentioned, which is super strong. So essentially, where can we go with Riven? She is a 3-drop on Noxus. Noxus decks have typically been pretty straightforward for damage. She kind of plays in that, but she has a little mini quest with herself, which is really nice, where she's trying to do this extra mechanic to level up. When she does level up, she becomes quite threatening, and it's more of almost like a Lee Sin build, where you're trying to put a bunch of power on her and then use her as one big weapon to push all the damage through, which is pretty neat because Noxus doesn't have a whole lot like this right now. They have Darius, who just kind of is a massive weapon himself, but they don't have anything in that line, which is really good because Noxus needs a little bit of love. So as far as theorycraft, I'm going to go through some old cards, a few different deck ideas that I have, and we're going to just jump around a little bit and talk about where I think I'm going to put Riven first. So let's jump over to the live game here. So the first thing that came to mind really is just, what happens if we just go with mono Noxus, right? So, the first thing is, let's think about the spells that work with Riven really well. Obviously, her blade fragments work really well, but doubling the effect, you want something that adds probably +2 or +3 attacks. So you have Elixir of Wrath, which is just give an ally +3. That's a quick way to just 1 mana, burst speed, give Riven a ton of extra damage, and then she'll come through and swing really hard. Now, if she already has Overwhelm, that's super useful. If you had the Blade Fragment that gave her Overwhelm, then you're set. And it's +3 attack. That will double to 6. If she has no other buffs, she'll be a 4 attack with +6 for 1 mana. And if she already has Overwhelm from before, that is massive. So she will be swinging for 10 with that. Obviously, this might not happen all on turn 3 or turn 4, but even if this happens up to turn 6, 7, 10 attack with Overwhelm, pretty good, pretty solid. So Elixir of Wrath is a super good option here. Even Brother's Bond can give extra damage out, which is super solid. Now, another one here is just Might. So even if you don't have that fragment and you don't have the ability to play that fragment onto Riven that turn that gives her Overwhelm, you still have the option to just play Might for 3 mana at burst speed, which will give her +3 if she's leveled, +6, which is absurd, and Overwhelm in case you don't have that. So either of those options with Elixir of Wrath or Might, depending on how accurately you think you can really hit Riven with the Overwhelm unit, with the Overwhelm fragment, I mean, then might be just as good of an option. No pun intended there for the might. And then obviously, I think just one deck, you kind of just start building this Noxus, mid-rangey type aggro deck that just wants to pummel out damage. So you obviously put 3 Riven in, and then early you can include the Precious Pet for quick damage to the Nexus. You can include the Saboteur for extra damage to the Nexus. There's plenty of 2-drops that you wanted to include, plenty of 3, and obviously you kind of want to play it as like an Overwhelm style deck, where you do this type of thing with Whirling Death so you can get damage through there. And then, you're just looking at what we want, and you're going toward the end. You're going to have some top heaviness at the back end. You could totally run Crowd Favorite, and then your 2-drop could be House Spider, and you could run things like that. And you're just kind of having this strong early game, and obviously you have the new 1-drop and the new 2-drop that came with Riven as well. They're both solid, and then you could run Basilisk Raider in a mono deck, which could be a 5 attack. So I think just going the straight up, and you can obviously include whoever you want. You can probably just include Darius here, and then you can kind of just go that straight up mid-range beat face. I'm using Riven as a monster attack unit. Any attack buffs, and you want to throw Elixir of Wrath, you want to throw a couple Mites in, and then you could fill in this with all the new cards that we just mentioned. So there's at least 9 new cards, maybe even more if you want to use her new spell as well. And then you're just kind of blasting a bunch of damage there. I think that would be a really solid mid-range deck. And now, just to show you another version of this that you could easily do, this is one of the decks I took into the seasonal tournament here. And I think you could easily place Riven into this style of deck. So this was more of I believe this actually was one of the really popular decks in the NA seasonal tournament as well, but it's just Draven, Darius. I think they were using Sejuani and Darius, but you're using Ancient Yetis and Farron at the top end. You're using Decisive Maneuver to stun and get a bunch of Overwhelm damage through. Well, Riven has the access to a bunch of Overwhelm with the Blade Fragments, and if you're just, replacing Darius or Draven here with Riven, and then maybe dropping a few of these early units for some of the other things. So you can drop Omen Hawk for the 1-drop, and you could drop the Sentry for the new 2-drop, the Rune Weaver, to get more forged abilities. And you could drop Troll Chant for a couple of the other spells that'll add forged or reforge as well. Yeah, that deck looks pretty good. I mean, we can obviously drop Wolf Rider for some extra things too, but I think just slotting Riven straight into this style of deck might be even the first thing I do instead of the Allegiance, because I think this is just already a proven archetype. I was having a lot of success with this before. So just kind of slotting that straight into this would be great. And, Darius, or Draven, was really just kind of early, had quick attack, normally can attack, get some damage through. But I think Riven can play that same position, except her ceiling's a lot higher. So Draven might be a little more consistent right away. He gets on the board on turn 3, you attack, you have 3 damage. They probably won't block because it's quick attack, or they'll chump with something small. So you normally can get some damage through with Draven. But Riven, the biggest Draven's going to do is get some axes, and you normally don't level Draven up. Riven's ceiling, however, is a lot higher, right? She has a lot more capability of getting a lot more buff damage. And now the only thing that you kind of would be lacking here is a buff. Now, you do have Battle Fury, which is obnoxious, right? I mean, if you cast Battle Fury on a level 2 Riven, it is plus 16 attack. It's not bad. There's not much else to say there. I mean, that's insanity, right? You can just Battle Fury your Riven, get plus 16 attack, and if you already have Overwhelm from, any your Blade Fragment, or if you want to run Might as well, that's pretty dang good, right? That seems solid. So I think I'm going to play around with something like this. I might even drop Wolf Rider and then put Riven in, still run Battle Fury on her. And then what you could even do in this 5-drop slot is if you really want to secure that you're going to have Overwhelm, you always have the option to play Kato the Arm to give a supported ally plus 3 attack and Overwhelm. He's pretty solid. This deck typically wants to run most of their Overwhelm units already, just so you can attack with a bunch of Overwhelm and then Decisive Maneuver and your whole board gets buffed, but still might be worth a slot. So this deck will for sure be something I build right away with Riven and Darius and Freljord, and getting that really strong mid-range Overwhelm deck going. That being said, all these decks that I'm talking about, I'm going to start cranking out all these decks, and we plan to, as soon as the set drops on the 16th, for an entire week, I'm going to post a new deck guide and gameplay of each of those decks every single day. So I'm going to try to get that going. That will definitely be one of them, and it'll be a quick one. Another random, Riven idea that I had is, trying to bring back, let me discard these changes real quick, is trying to bring back Taric a little bit here. I know Taric's a little bit like a meme, but, he essentially has the ability to cast a spell on himself, and then it'll also go to the ally as well. Now this really works super well with things like Blade of the Exile, right? It would give quick attack, overwhelm, and +2 attack. That's a massive, and it's a grant. So if you actually get the dream and play Blade of the Exile on Taric, attack and support something like Riven, and they both get +2 attack granted, as well as quick attack and overwhelm, and they'll get tough with that. It's insanity. The reason I like it a lot with Targon is because you have access to some really good Targon cards, obviously like Hush and things. The big thing that's going to stop you is, just you pump all your stuff into Riven. We're not playing Ionia, although that might be the third deck that we talk about. You're not playing Ionia, so you need a way to stop some of the nonsense that they're going back with, so you can run Bastion, because you're running a deck where your main target is pumping a bunch of spells into one unit and finishing the game off. So Bastion's a really good protection spell to make sure she gets through. As well, this might just be a pipe dream, but I just really want to make Taric work, and I think her being a 3/4, him being a 3/4 is pretty solid, and she's a 3-drop, piece of 4-drop, so you can right away start getting some decent value out of that. But on top of that, Targon just has a lot of good mid-range value. They have, obviously, Hush. They have Pale Cascade, which would be a great spell just to cast on her as well, so you get the +4 attack, but you also get to draw one, which is super solid. They have a decent amount of healing if you wanted to add that type of thing in there, but you could also add gems, and gems could be pretty useful with Riven, since she does have 3 attack. If she might start taking damage, you can heal her with gems, which is solid. Or if you want to really go, and I can switch back over real quick here, but if you really wanted to go into the full Riven package of using cards like Arel the Tracker on the right here. Now, you could do that, and gems are a really good proc for her ability. When you cast a spell on them, they get to do that. But as well, Taric works super well with her, because Taric will cast a spell on himself, obviously, when you use an ability, when you use a spell, but you'll attack, support Ariel, and then she will get casted a spell on her, and if it's something really strong, then she will then start striking the opponent every time, and as long as she can stay alive through that, giving her tough and a supported spell with Taric is a solid way to make that happen. This one I think sounds a lot more inconsistent than the first idea, but overall I still think it'd be a really fun way to make Riven work and bring back Taric. So second idea, Taric and Riven. And then third, I think you got to go something with Ionia here, because I think Ionia has too much support, and it might just be Taric or Riven and Lee Sin. Right, Lee Sin wants to cast 8+ spells. The rune fragments, or the blade fragments, are 1 cost burst speed spells. Gems obviously work really well, but that works super well to level up Lee Sin, so that's super strong. You can use all 3 of those blade fragments, and you can use the 2-drop. You could use the 2-cost spell that gives someone +2 attack, but then create reforges as well. That's 2 spells right there for Lee Sin, so that kind of almost works just like his kick does, where it's a 2-cost spell, but then it also produces a 1-cost spell, kind of the same thing. So lots of ways to level up Lee Sin there. And then that protection that we were talking about, where you're pumping all of your damage into one unit, you get the protection of Ionia in cards like Nopify to try to protect your early drops, and cards like Twin Discipline to give your unit more health, and then of course cards like Deny to just cancel out a big vengeance removal or anything like that. Obviously Ionia has plenty of support. The other big reason that Lee Sin works so well is because you do need to get Overwhelm on Lee Sin for the combo to work. That's previously done most of the time using just Zenith Blade, but now you have all the one of the blade fragments, anytime you create a blade fragment, has the chance of being that. And if you create 3 of those blade fragments, you're guaranteed to get that, because remember, they create a different blade fragment each time. Or once you actually have the Blade of Exile, that directly will give Lee Sin quick attack and overwhelm. Not that he needs any more keywords, but we might as well throw some more on there, right? And again, a bunch of different spells, so that synergizes really well. I think Lee Sin and Riven could be a super, super solid deck overall. But guys, that will do it actually for the video. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to us. We'll put out tons more content as we go. I hope you enjoyed the article. If you have enjoyed the article, the link will for sure be right below. That's on RuneterraCCG.com. We write for them a decent amount, and it's always a blast. The great guys over there, so check out that content as well. They have full spoiler reviews for everything that's come out yet, and we'll have plenty of deck techs and guides on there, as well as this channel right here. So thanks for checking the video out, and peace.